Seems like federal activist judges are trying to determine what power the sitting president has. I want to go through some of the biggest stories in the news. To help me do that, I have Kevin Shipp with me again. Kevin, thank you for joining me.
Stephen, great to be with you as always.
So some background, Kevin is a former CIA counterterrorism expert, counterintelligence investigator, whistleblower, and author of multiple books, including a bestseller, Twilight of the Shadow Government. Here's something I'm trying to understand. The law firm Perkin Coie, who was used by Hillary Clinton to disseminate lies, cover up the Russia Russia hoax, they had their security clearance revoked by President Trump. Now a federal judge has ordered President Trump to reinstate their security clearance because regardless of what they did, they had freedom of speech. What are your thoughts on this judge's ruling and President Trump removing their security clearance?
Well, this is judicial tyranny. The President of the United States has the executive power to remove these security clearances, to give or take away security clearances for national security things. So these judges are just trying to withstand a dramatic change to the shadow government, I call it. Some call it the deep state. But that's what's happening. They're going against the authority of the President of the United States. And I know that the Trump team and attorneys are resisting that. I hope they do. If these judges are doing this, which is a violation of separation of powers, they really should be impeached. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, as I have recently said quite a bit, somebody pinched me. I think I'm dreaming. These people that had their security clearances revoked were dark figures committing illegal, at times criminal operations. Russiagate is one of them, against the interests of the American people. Perkins Coie law firm and their chief point man, Mark Elias, literally drummed up false information to try to bring down Donald Trump and eliminate Donald Trump's first and second presidencies. You could call, I think, this pretty close to treason. That law firm is engaged in essentially criminal activity. They need to have their security clearances revoked and never have a government contract again. Another one is there's been several that clearances Trump has revoked, redacted, let me put it that way. The ones that really gratified me, and I have to tell you, in my entire lifetime, my career lifetime, I have never seen anybody confront the shadow government deep state like the Trump administration. Trump also took away the clearances for the 42 so-called intelligence officers. One was the deputy director of the CIA, who came out and said that the Russian laptop was simply Russian disinformation when they knew darn well it was not. And the intelligence did not show that. They came out and they signed a false statement stating that it was. Trump has removed their security clearances, as he should. You don't do that sort of thing with a national security clearance, especially against the sitting president. And then again, these same 42, and some have gone up to 51, but I've confirmed 42, the same 42 intelligence officers, senior officials, and I want to note senior officials. A lot of CI employees are good, patriotic people down at the other levels, but they signed another statement, all 42 of them, stating that Trump is a danger to national security. So people say, well, the CIA doesn't really get involved in U.S. politics, as I've shown again and again in speeches. Oh, yes, they do. The CIA manipulates Congress, the president, and the judiciary, and we're seeing all three of those right now. So this is good. This is good stuff. They have a long way to go with reforming the CIA. I just did a video on step one for CI reform yesterday. They have a long way to go. John Ratcliffe has got his hands full because he's up against a monster, and you can count on the fact that the CIA bureaucracy below him is going to try to stop him at every turn, continue to engage in these criminal operations that they're still doing, and without him even knowing about it. Even Mike Pompeo, when he came out, and James Woolsey, both former DCIs, both said that the CIA bureaucracy didn't even tell them as the director what they were doing. And that's going to happen with Ratcliffe. The knives are going to be out. They're going to keep information from him. And that's why I think the steps to CIA reform have to be radical. They have to redo the National Security Act of 1947 and reword that document, taking away this gross power of secrecy that the CIA has.
Okay. John Ratcliffe, the new head of the CIA, why would they keep things from him? Is it because they're afraid he'll shut things down? He'll dry up their budget? Some of it is criminal and he would be forced to expose that. What are the reasonings they would keep that from the director?
Oh, all three. Some of their operations are criminal. And I documented that in a recent video called CIA Criminal Conspiracy. Some of them are criminal. Some of them are operations that not even Congress know about. And if that information came to light, if Ratcliffe found out about it and reported it to Trump, then it could very well mean the beginning of the shutdown of the CIA. The CIA, especially the upper 20% of these elite narcissists, they do not believe in democracy, as even Mike Pompeo said. They do not believe in the Constitution. They believe in the expansion and the protection of the CIA. That is what they're all about, and they will do anything, and I mean anything, to preserve the CIA and keep it from scrutiny.
Okay. I mean, it's now been, 60 years since JFK was assassinated. And one of his big pushes was he saw these secret societies that were all about self-preservation. And I have to imagine, just like compound interest on money, that, the compounding missions and desire to protect your unit, it has only grown over the last 60 years. I was disappointed to see not only Perkin Coie have their security clearance probably put back in. I'm guessing Trump's going to take that up to an appeals court. But the fact that this judge reinstated it based off the First Amendment. But if the First Amendment was a lie that nearly destroyed the country, cost a president his presidency, installed Joe Biden, to me, that doesn't seem like real freedom of speech. That seems more like freedom to lie and freedom to do what is in your own self-interest, not the interest of the country.
I mean, that's ludicrous that the judge should say that. The First Amendment was not created and still does not protect criminal activity or criminal statements. So even think you can't yell fire in a crowded movie theater, for example. That's not a First Amendment right. And it's not a First Amendment right to engage in criminal activity, propaganda, false information, disseminating intentionally false information to the news media and the American people. That's not a First Amendment right. That's criminal activity.
Yeah. I don't know if you saw this or not, but Hunter Biden came out last week and asked a judge to drop his lawsuit against, I just forgot his name, Garrett. Anyway, he's the one that put together the Laptop from Hell book that has all the photos, all the videos, all of the emails and text messages and all of that. So he tells this judge, hey, I'm broke. I have no money. I can't continue suing this guy. And now the judge has to make a decision. In the meantime, he's now fled to South Africa to go on vacation for 90 days. So are you broke or are you fleeing the country? Because the first week of the Trump administration, I saw video after video after video of people, lawyers, judges saying, now that he's been pardoned, he's lost his Fifth Amendment right. If he's called back before Congress and lies, he could actually be jailed. Do you believe he's fled for his life, or is somebody funding a vacation if this guy's broke? What's going on?
Losing weight can feel like an uphill battle, especially with the American diet. From nasty seed oils that hurt us to high fructose corn syrup that makes us even more hungry. Americans have wrecked their gut health. That's where Thermotrim steps in as a smart, science-backed solution. This USA-made fat burner starts by restoring your gut health. Thermotrim has a gut bacteria found in thinner people, but not heavier Americans. Thermotrim helps restore that so you can lose weight. It supports digestion and curbs cravings naturally. Have you tried other products to lose weight and change your gut health? I know I have. For me, Thermotrim is what my body needed. Get Thermotrim to improve your gut health and start losing weight today. Visit redlineremedies.com or snap the QR code. Make sure to use code Gardner to get an additional 20% off. We all feel better when we lose weight, and I want you to live a long and happy life.
I think it's probably more than a vacation. There's this thing in every trial, civil and criminal, called discovery. And it's discovery that usually shuts down someone that has filed a lawsuit to cover their own rear end or other purposes, unjudicial purposes, to close a case down. And discovery is a powerful thing, because if you decide you're going to sue somebody, then the other attorneys have full access to all of your case facts, and why you brought the suit, what is included in your accusations. They get to see everything. And I would suspect, having been through much of this and seen criminal trials and how they work, and a good friend of mine is an attorney who represented me when I sued the CIA, discovery turns away the false lawsuits. What would happen with Hunter is all of this would come out, including the stuff on the laptop, which is all factual and all legitimate and all stands up in court as evidence. That would all come out, and to the detriment of Hunter Biden. So, yeah, I think he's taken probably a long vacation.
They probably hope to shut this Garrett Ziegler from the Marco Polo group down. His name just came to me. They probably hoped that they would be able to get in and out very quickly, but he's being funded. And so Hunter ran out of money before Garrett did, would be my guess. Okay. Wanted to ask your thoughts on this. Senator Mike Lee of my state, Utah, is calling for the Smith-Mundt Act to be restored. Basically, he said the U.S. government shouldn't have the right to lie to or propagandize their own citizens, and even worse, to use their own tax money against them. Now I'm seeing this online, where many people are pointing out that under President Barack Obama, he overturned the Smith-Mundt Act, which now allows CIA, NSA, FBI, other groups to lie to the American people and basically run propaganda. What are your thoughts on having this put back into place, and your thoughts on paid propaganda to manipulate and build a narrative in the mind of the American people?
Oh, goodness gracious. There absolutely should be protections against propagandizing the American people. You and I both know that with the WikiLeaks revelations of USAID, that the CIA was using that as a front to stage a global matrix of propaganda, primarily for woke ideology and some of these perverted globalist principles. And the CIA, as it has done, it's the same MO, is using money that Congress is not aware of it being used for covert operations, so that they can get around congressional congressional budget restrictions. So they use USAID, much like they did during the Vietnam War, funded drugs and running arms to fund operations that Congress didn't know about during that conflict. The CIA has used USAID to cover for political operations, regime change operations, et cetera. And the point people, I think, really need to remember is this is Americans' tax dollars. The CIA essentially is stealing and laundering through USAID. And that has got to stop. And as you probably know, too, $500 million in USAID went to the secretive non-governmental organization, which is operating, as I mentioned, a global news propaganda network using taxpayer dollars, calling it the Internews Network. And I'm sure, Stephen, you've heard of that.
Yes.
But this is $472.6 million of American taxpayer money. They're working in 4,000 291 countries. They're producing 4,799 hours of broadcasts, reaching 778 million people around the world with this elite leftist propaganda. Essentially, the CIA is trying to do cultural change in these countries, to do regime change. And in their mind, cultural change means destroying any traditional values and ushering in this perverted woke ideology. Much of the funding went to gay drag queen operas, LGBTQ instruction in their educational system, and on and on. And there's a whole list. I won't read it now, but there's a whole list of LGBTQ and drag queen initiatives that the CIA was using to fund in these other countries and push propaganda on them. And you don't see, it's interesting, you don't see a lot of these foreign countries coming out and decrying the fact that USAID is being closed down. Why do you suppose that is? It's because they know it's a CIA front, and they don't like the U.S. trying to push abortion and LGBTQ plus rights on their people and on their government. So we're not hearing a whole lot of complaints from foreign countries. So it was horrible. But this is how the CIA does things and has been doing things for years without the American people even knowing it's happening, and without even knowing that their tax dollars are being used to fund these things, as if they did know. And that's kind of one of my missions, is to inform them. If they did know, they'd ask for the CIA to be restructured, broken apart and restructured.
Yeah. I did read this morning that an NGO in Ireland is shutting down, saying they can no longer fulfill their mission of bringing people from third world countries into the beautiful country of Ireland with international aid drying up. And then you search the name, and almost all of their funding was from American taxpayer money through USAID. So basically, if you break it down in simple terms, we're no longer able to invade and flood Ireland with illegal immigrants because we ran out of American taxpayer money. Yeah. It's just so sad.
Well, Stephen, you nailed it. Yeah, that's exactly right.
Yeah, wow. So, okay, so we'll see if Senator Mike Lee can get the Smith-Mundt Act put back in, because nobody likes to feel lied to or tricked, especially by their government, who they believe should have their back and that they're giving a tremendous amount of money to.
That's right.
A couple of weeks ago, the whole world watched a fight between President Zelensky and President Trump in the Oval Office. Trump kicked Zelensky out of the White House, canceled the press conference, said that he was incredibly rude and ungrateful. Zelensky then flew to the United Kingdom, where he was met with praise and sympathy from European Union leaders, telling him how great he was, that they would have his back until the very end. Now, this week, all of a sudden, NATO is saying, go for peace. We shouldn't let this war go any further. It's time for elections in Ukraine. Why the sudden shift? Is this because they realized Trump is not going to bend and give them endless amounts of taxpayer money?
Well, yeah, what a shift in the winds that NATO is doing, and organizations like that usually follow what benefits them the most. And they've realized that pushing for Ukraine to be part of NATO is not going to happen ever. And so they've changed their tune a little bit. And we have to go back and remember that in 2014, the coup in Ukraine that overthrew a democratically elected government was staged by the CIA in the person of John Brennan and the Dragon Queen of the Department of State, Victoria Nuland, along with George Soros and several NGOs that they were funding. Started that coup. We now have 1.8 million dead young Ukrainian young men, soldiers, and at least as many on the Russian side. After that, the CIA has done it again. They go in thinking that they're the peak of intellectual evolution. They're smarter than everybody else. They go in, they stage a coup. They put Zelensky in place, thinking that it's going to work, and that it all backfires, and tens of thousands, if not millions, of people die. This is a repeated thing we've seen with the CIA going back to its inception. I have a whole list of the genocide that the CIA has been involved in, to the tune of about 7 million innocent people, civilians that have died in their operations and coups. So we have Zelensky now, who was put in place by Victoria Nuland and John Brennan as a puppet for the CIA. Now, Russia knew, and I'm no fan of Vladimir Putin. He's a dark soul, but he's a brilliant strategist. And those are two bad combinations. He sent his own young men in to get killed. But from his, I don't know if you want to call it strategic, paranoid, power hunger, I don't know. I don't know the man. But I do know that he saw the United States violate the Minsk agreements and NATO violate the promise that they would never put a NATO allied country on the border of the Soviet Union, and then they would never do that with Ukraine. Well, the CIA goes in and does it anyway. We've got American troops in there training Ukrainians how to shoot long-range missiles into Russia, and you've got Vladimir Putin in Russia. Now we've gone across their border with missiles through Ukraine. I mean, what do you expect? So this is what is happening. Some people support the war in Ukraine. Some people oppose it. We have to follow the facts. But the facts here, this is a brutal, bloody war, costing the death of probably, I think, most wars in history, that is happening right before our eyes. While these congressmen and senators sit in Georgetown swirling their scotch on ice, saying, no, we need to keep sending these billions of dollars of aid into Ukraine. And while they sit there and they swirl their scotch, and these young men are getting dismembered and killed over in that war. I mean, that part of our government does not care and never has cared about human life.
Yeah. Oh, I saw a video the other day where there's a lion and he's surrounded by about a dozen hyenas, and they're all just working collaboratively to try to wear this person down. I feel like that's maybe what's been happening with President Trump, is just the lawfare, the accusations, the European Union, the United Kingdom, Zelensky, China, Russia, they're just all attacking. And yet he stood firm and said, we are ending this war. And once he cut off American money to the European Union, they were like, well, we should probably end the war. We've run out of money, you know? So it's amazing how much good and evil happens around the world because of the money that they extract out of American taxpayers. Yeah.
Like the movie quote said, follow the money, Jerry, and you'll always find the truth. And this is interesting, Stephen, the CIA's routine modus operandi when it goes in and does a coup, it's for oil or minerals. Like in Iran, when they overthrew Iran, the democratic government, they overthrew it because Iran was nationalizing their oil and no longer giving it free to the U.S. Well, Lindsey Graham several months ago slipped and said, well, this, however many billions of dollars, 234, whatever billion dollars we've given to Ukraine in arms sales, we're going to get that back in minerals. They're going to give us our money back in minerals. And I turned to my wife and I said, there they go again, staging a coup because they want those rare earth minerals. Once again, the CIA is doing the same thing connected to Wall Street. So this whole thing just stinks from top to bottom. It needs to stop. It needs to end. I hope that Putin doesn't play President Trump and get Trump to agree to things that should not be on the table. Now, granted, they're probably going to have to give up Crimea, which is Russian speaking and wants to be part of the Soviet Union anyway. But there's got to be a compromise, and it's got to be a good one on both sides. And I just pray to God that it happens, because a lot of mothers and fathers have lost their boys forever in this war.
Yeah. It's very, very, very sad. Okay, another war that happened around the world was this COVID war. I'm reading this morning on Zero Hedge. They just broke this big story that the BND, I don't know how to pronounce this, but it's basically the CIA of Germany.
Right.
They did a secret investigative operation in 2020 to figure out the origin of COVID. They immediately nailed that it was a lab leak from an American-funded lab in China that was not super deadly to most of the population, and then the German government went silent. They buried the communique. They buried the story. Why might they have done that? Why, if the CIA of Germany figures this out, why not share that with the world? Was this a giant psyop? Was this all about enriching big pharma? So they just kept their mouth. What are your thoughts on all of that?
Well, the BND being closely connected to the CIA in terms of Allied intelligence, I am certain received pressure from the CIA to shut that down and not report that. It was in every interest of Germany to release that information for the good of their own people and the good of really globally of everyone, but they didn't. They shut it down, and I would be pretty certain that the CIA put pressure on them and said, sit on it. Now, a lot of people don't know that the CIA, through Johns Hopkins University, the CIA will use cutouts. It loves universities. Through Johns Hopkins, the Health Science Department of Johns Hopkins, the CIA developed a pandemic response, which included lockdowns, propaganda to the people, and other things. They were engaging in trials of that program secretly, and then after their last, I think they call it the winter trial, after their last trial use of this thing, to see if it would work or how well it would work. 3 months after that particular dry run, COVID hit. And what we saw rolled out, the lockdowns and the propaganda, was a CIA designed plan that had been there and been tested, and they just rolled it out.
Yeah, I agree with you. I'm sure the CIA, the United States, put pressure on Germany. Keep your mouth shut. Just like with the Nord Stream 2 pipeline, right? Like, no, we can't figure out how this thing mysteriously blew up and right. Did the most, eco damage, eco terrorism that we've ever seen. Right. To this day, nobody seems to want to get to the bottom of that, even though they did an investigation and they said we can't ever share what we discovered. I'll bet you there's pressure to keep that one under wraps as well. Okay, your thoughts, final story. I appreciate you coming on.
Sure.
Why are we having such a hard time getting information about who's connected to Jeffrey Epstein?
Oh, my goodness gracious. It's because who is involved in that and who is involved in those records. And the overarching reason is Jeffrey Epstein was a dual agent asset of Mossad and the CIA. Even Alex Acosta in his first trial was told to drop and not prosecute Epstein because the, quote, higher ups told him that he was involved in intelligence, and they dropped the entire conviction. Then he winds up with a second time. He's in prison, and of all people, over his case and his incarceration is none other than William Barr, who has a long history with the CIA that most people don't know about. William Barr had him locked up. William Barr didn't even bother to contact the prison once in such a high-profile, important case. And then the warden that was over that prison didn't do daily checks on Epstein either. And then we have this menagerie of coincidences that happened, and he winds up dead in his soul, in his cell, rather. Dead in his soul, yeah, probably, but eventually dead in his cell, which I am absolutely convinced was a murder. Security guards were asleep, the cameras failed, and then on and on with all these things happening at once. And then William Barr, instead of chastising the warden, he promoted him to a regional director. There's some stinky stuff in this Epstein information, and it involves high-level politicians and CEOs. And they do not want that list to come out. They're doing everything they can to stop it.
Okay. Well, Pam Bondi says, I have it. We're reviewing everything. And then 2 days ago, this comes out. This is, oh boy, come on, CNN. Show me the title here. Oh, here we go. Former JP Morgan and Barclay executive Jess Staley tells court that he slept with Epstein's assistant, that he went to the island, that he was involved in everything. So, this guy is like, they're now saying he's preemptively trying to get ahead of the litigation and what might come out. But I mean, this is like a guy at the highest level of banking now going, holy crap, my name is going to come out. I might as well be the first one to get in front of this and say, I didn't, just like Bill Gates.
Yep.
Oh, I didn't know he was a bad guy.
Exactly.
I was on his plane a bunch, but I didn't know he was bad and different things like that. So we'll see. But here's the first person to self-identify and say, hey, this is going to come out. I just want everyone to know, like, I wasn't sleeping with these underage kids. I was just sleeping with his assistant.
Yeah, I was going to make that point. That's really good, Stephen. He called her an assistant. Didn't give her age at all, but called her an assistant, which makes it look a little less criminal than if he gave this. We don't know if this gal was 14 years old or what, but she was just an assistant. But yeah, we're seeing the tip of the iceberg where he's trying to get out and get ahead of what's coming, and what's coming is ugly.
Yeah, that's like trying to rename a teenager. Oh, this was a pre-college,
Right.
like coming up with some clever title
right.
that makes it that downplays it. Like,
Right.
It was just his assistant.
Right.
You see,
Exactly.
So, oh man. All right. So you've got this book about the shadow government. It's doing very well. It became an Amazon bestseller. It sold out. They had to do a reprint. It's now back out. Tell my audience about your book and what they're going to learn in it.
Well, me and my courageous co-author Kent Heckenlively, which is probably the only person that had the courage to join in with this effort, we split wide open a lot of the things that the CIA has been hiding from Congress, from the American people. We get into some of their dark operations that they funded with drugs, on and on. Operation Mockingbird, I call it Mockingbird 2.0. Supposedly George H.W. Bush, longtime CIA officer, said when pushed in a press hearing, well, the CIA will no longer pay journalists to plant information in publications. And then he said this, which everybody missed: from now on, it will be voluntary. In other words, still going on, and the CIA has all kinds of ways to make things voluntary.
Yes.
You print this or else, kind of thing. So, yeah, it's the whole thing is sickening.
Yeah. How about being those journalists? They're like, God, I sure miss those paychecks and not the threat to kill my children.
Yeah. And I'll throw in one final thing. If you haven't seen it, you really should. On Stephen Colbert, one of the actresses in the film The Agency, and The Agency always supports films that portray it in a positive light. They even helped write the script in Argo, and that part wasn't even true. But she's on Stephen Colbert, and he goes, so this series you're in with The Agency, tell us about it. And she goes, not knowing how she had been played, well, the CIA, we go regularly for meetings with the CIA, and we all sit around, and sometimes we have drinks, and they brought us over to the CIA for training, and boom, oh, okay, so the CIA is all over that series, and you as an actress are being trained by the CIA, and you're palling around with CIA agents. I think enough said there.
Yeah. It's not like, at Grey's Anatomy, we asked doctors to help us understand certain surgeries. It's like, no, the CIA is playing a role in crafting the narrative of the story. I know from talking to other people involved in the FBI, the CIA, even to release a book, you have to have the CIA approve what is said about them. And of course, they're not going to want a bunch of stuff out there that makes them look bad. So, well, that's congratulations. Right. Oh, go ahead.
Thank you, Steve. Yeah, just let me make one final point, because you made a very, very good point there. When we were finished with Twilight of the Shadow Government, I had a decision to make, because I signed the CIA secrecy agreement, which has now been weaponized, keeping people from testifying in Congress and things. They redacted unclassified information in my first book, In from the Cold, about break-ins to my house and chemicals on the ceilings and things. So I knew they were going to stop Twilight of the Shadow Government cold. So I let the CIA sit on it for 3 months, and then I published it anyway. That's the only way this information got, and I knew it was the only way this information was going to get to the American people. So it's truthful, and it's factual, and it's right out there for everybody to see.
Okay. Well, I'm going to put those direct links down below so that people can check it out. I appreciate you taking time out of your day to come on. I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, Stephen. Always a pleasure.